This video is about the Calvin cycle. The goal of the Calvin cycle is basically to take the energy stored in ATP and the energy stored in NADPH and convert carbon dioxide gas into the simple plant sugar known as pGal. pGal is sugar that's very stable, can last for years and years. It's interesting to note that the carbon that's found in sugar comes from the carbon in the atmosphere. It's also interesting to note that even though ATP is the energy currency of the cell and is used for all kinds of cellular jobs in every life form on the planet, ATP has a short lifespan. Maybe it can exist for a few hours or a few days. Therefore, the energy in ATP must be stored in sugar. And plants figured out how to do that. One more thing before we get started. Notice that the Calvin cycle is really a cycle. In other words, where it starts is the same place as where it ends. It all begins with a protein called rubisco, which is probably the most important and abundant protein on the entire planet. Because if it wasn't for rubisco, we wouldn't have trees and other plants making sugars for us to eat. The protein rubisco has 5 carbon atoms and 2 phosphate groups, and it begins the Calvin cycle. Next, 1 molecule of carbon dioxide gas is added from the atmosphere. This causes rubisco to become a 6-carbon molecule like this. This molecule then splits into 2 groups of 3, as you see there. Next, 2 molecules of ATP are added, dropping off phosphate and energy, resulting in the low energy ADP. This further phosphorylates the 2 molecules. The next thing that happens is that 2 molecules of NADPH are added, resulting in 2 molecules of NADP+. This action turns one of the 3 carbon molecules into the simple plant sugar known as pGal. And this is the main thing we're trying to do here, is to make pGal. For the other molecule, we will continue our story over here. This time we add 1 molecule of ATP to the Calvin cycle, resulting in 1 molecule of ADP. Result is here, but I can't really show you the difference in this little video. Well, it looks like we're about done with the Calvin cycle. The only problem is down here we only have 3 carbon atoms, whereas up here we have 5 carbon atoms. So we can't do this just yet. Before we finish the story, I must summarize. At this location in the cycle, we added 1 molecule of CO2. Over here, we added 2 molecules of ATP. Right here, we added 2 molecules of NADPH. And over here, we added another molecule of ATP. Keep track of those inputs, because this drawing is going to get a little bit complicated. Okay, we're going to take this little molecule and we're going to go twice more through the Calvin cycle. Here's once more. And here's the second time that we're going through the Calvin cycle. And after we've done that, we are going to end up with 5-carbon Rubisco, as you'll see in just a second. Each time we go through the cycle, we're going to add CO2 here, and we're going to add CO2 here. And we add 2 ATP here, and we add 2 ATP here. And we add 2 NADPH here, and we add 2 NADPH here. And finally, we add 1 ATP here, and we add 1 ATP here. It's really not complicated. Our little 3-carbon friend over here picks up a carbon dioxide molecule and becomes 4-carbon. And then it goes around again and it picks up another carbon dioxide molecule and it becomes 5-carbon, which is exactly what we need to make Rubisco. I have a few points to make. During the second and the third time around, Rubisco is not added to this process. Also, pGal is not made in this process. So I'm trying to separate out the second and third time around from Rubisco and pGal. Another point, ADP goes back to the light reaction to get re-energized. The same thing happens here, and here, and here, and here, but I just didn't have room to show the ATP turning to ADP. And the same logic goes. The NADPH turns into NADP plus and has to return to the light reaction. Same exact thing happens here and happens here. A good way to remember this is that we can look at the Calvin cycle in one rotation, where we need 1 CO2 going in here, 2 ATP going in here, 2 NADPH going in here, and 1 ATP going in here. Just multiply this by 3 and you're almost there. Let's summarize the 3 turns of the Calvin cycle with a list of inputs and outputs. The carbon in the 3 carbon dioxide molecules becomes the simple sugar known as pGal. We need 9 ATP to phosphorylate the molecules and give them energy, and the outputs have to go back to the light reaction. And the energy from the 6 NADPH is used to drive the Calvin cycle and their leftovers have to go back to the light reaction. So there it is, folks. Photosynthesis in a nutshell. So maybe it's time to go out into the world and find yourself a nice big tree to climb. And thank those plants for giving us the sugar we need to survive on the planet, as well as the oxygen we need to breathe. So not only are trees beautiful to look at, but they provide an amazing service for us all.